Greetings and welcome to Growth Hacking Secrets. I'm your host Mohammed Siddique from Atlanta, Georgia, and the co-author of New Success Secrets available on Amazon. On this episode, we have a special guest, Lisa Wingfield. Lisa is the producer at M.A.P.S Media. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Lisa Wingfield. Lisa, welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me here.
I love your background, by the way. It's great. Lisa, let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to get started with the Maps Media?
Up, it froze. I'm back. I see you now.
Okay. Okay. So let me repeat my question just in case, where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to start Maps Media?
So I always wanted to be in media as a kid. I'm a millennial, so I grew up in the era of like this analog childhood and somewhat digital adulthood. So I always would record myself, and had the big boom boxes, like doing radio shows, and the big heavy 20-pound cameras doing news. But I kind of, when I went to school, I had a professor, because I wanted to go for journalism, that said, "Hey, you shouldn't do this." And one professor made me change my whole direction. So I ended up in the nonprofit industry as an executive director in Baltimore City, and we needed more clients. And one of the ways that I was seeing is podcasts were taking off, and a lot of businesses started podcasts. So I was like, oh, this would be a really good way to get people to know who we are and to get people engaged, and it's free. So that's kind of how I got into the podcast space. We started with the Made series, which was a workforce development podcast. And over time, it evolved into something that I started doing on my own. And that's kind of where Maps Media came to be, because there wasn't a lot of diversity. And so I wanted to bring diversity into the podcasting space and arena, not just having people of color, but different perspectives from those people of color.
Mm. Good on you, Lisa. You did it. Go girl. Keep doing it. Wonderful. What's a MAP stands for, by the way?
So MAPS came from Millennials Anonymous Podcast, which MAPS Media, though, stands for Minority Amplified Personality Safeguard, which is just a space for people who have perspectives that are not always seen in the mainstream or heard in the mainstream to be heard.
Okay, wonderful. So, what are the top three mistakes to avoid when you are launching a podcast? You are expert. You have so many, three, four podcasts, so we can all learn from you.
Yes. So the first thing that I did wrong, and I think a lot of other people do, is that you don't do any research of who's listening to your podcast. So you think that because you're so great that it doesn't matter who listens to it, it'll just take off. And that is not true. So you do need to find out exactly who your target audience is so that it can make it a lot easier to market your content. Another thing that I see that people do wrong is they don't run it as a business, because eventually the goal is that you will make money from doing this if you plan to do it long term. So setting yourself up so that you can turn it into a business when you decide, hey, I want to get an LLC or whatever. So at least you're starting to track their expenses, how much stuff costs, what you're going to need in order to run it. And then for me, the very last thing is chasing numbers and not the quality. So when I got started, I only cared about all just the numbers. How many people are listening to it? How can I get more people? Just throwing out content, because that's what they said. If you make content every single week, especially on YouTube, you'll get more followers. So just throw out anything. And that just was not the case. So you really have to make sure that you do quality instead of just quantity.
Mm. No, this is good. Quality, not the quantity. So one more. You probably have a lot more to share.
Oh, yes, I definitely have lots and lots more. And then another thing that I see people do is not investing in the podcast. A lot of people don't realize this because they think that, like I did when I first started, that podcasting is free, it's inexpensive, but in actuality, it's quite costly. So it's going to cost you a lot of money in order to produce it. The editing software, if you're editing, costs money. To stream this StreamYard, I use this as well. It costs money. The mic costs money. All of this stuff is expensive, and you need to also be prepared to potentially pay for marketing, especially in the beginning, which a lot of people don't realize how important marketing is. And networking. Networking
Every,
is so important.
everything starts from marketing and ends on marketing, you know.
Yes, yes. And a good PR person does wonders. And a lot of people don't realize that. PR is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, wonderful. Lisa, while you're going through this, you already learned a lot. You probably, do you mind sharing your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from that?
Yeah, so when I first got started, not with the main series, but when I started doing more entertainment-based things that I liked, the thing that I did was I wasn't authentic. And if you know anything about podcasts, it's all about authenticity. If you're not authentic, your audience will sense it right away. Like, this is not who you are. I don't really trust you. And that's exactly what happened because I was stuck in between the corporate world and kind of like just being authentically myself. And once I got out of that, things really started to turn around and people started to vibe more with what I was doing. But you have to really be able to be vulnerable and put yourself in a space where you're sharing information that of value and not just talking to talk.
Mm, wonderful. And how did you recover from that? Then once you left then you became your original authentic once you left the corporate world?
So what happened, the way I recovered from it is I had to take a look at myself, meaning I had to go back and listen to the podcast. Like, what is it about this that people aren't really like, they don't like, or it's not really growing? And that hurts sometimes when you have to sit there and look at yourself like, oh, that was bad. That was bad too. Because a lot of podcasters never listen to their podcast, which is what I was doing in the beginning. But if you don't want to listen to your podcast, why would anyone else want to listen to your podcast?
Yeah,
That's what I had to do. And so from watching it and listening to it, I started to restructure and restructuring my podcast, I was able to make a better product.
wonderful, wonderful. That's good. So let's switch this side, Lisa. So enough about failures, enough about this, mistakes. Let's talk about your successes. So can you promise us you have to give us your best ones?
Yes, yes. So I'll definitely try to give you all of the best ones that I have. And the first one is build a strategy. A lot of people go into podcasts because it seems fun and oh, it's a great hobby, but they don't have a strategy. I didn't have a strategy when I started, so I had no idea where this podcast was going. I didn't know how to build it. I didn't know anything. So start there. If you plan on doing this, and I said it's expensive, to strategize, how are you going to pay for it? I was talking to you a little bit about some of the ways you can do that because a lot of people think you need to have 250 plus downloads per episode in order to get a sponsor, and that's just not true. So one of the ways you can do that is through affiliations. So making sure you're going on places like Podcorn and you're looking for people that are, a match to you. And that way, it's not really a risk on them to give you an option to make money for your podcast. It's more on you and how well you can sell and how well you can promote this particular product. You can also do ebooks. A lot of people are selling ebooks. So if you're in real estate and you do a real estate podcast, sell a real estate ebook. And that's a way to fund your podcast. Also, building a team. I know a lot of people that want to do everything themselves.
Yeah.
Don't. Something will suffer. Do not build a team. Get someone who knows how to edit. I was told in the business world, always get a lawyer and someone who's smarter than you. Those are the people that you need on your team. And those are the people, the same with podcasting. You need people around you who are smarter than you and are going to tell you the absolute truth. Don't spread yourself too thin. And the last thing I will tell people, and I see a lot of people do this, is they overcomplicate it. Keep it simple, especially with social media. Keep it simple. Those are the things that are going to go viral. Those are the things that people are going to watch. That's the content that people will like adapt to. Make it simple enough for people to take a sound bite and to be able to consume it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Lisa, you're not as good as you think. You are better. I can tell you for sure because you have the hard knocks experience,
I try. I definitely try.
So if I ask you, give your best bonus tip for your secret of success, which you have been kept to your kind of close to yourself, never shared with anyone yet.
I would say don't be afraid to be told no. I've been told no a lot. And you have to be able to put yourself out there. And especially if you have guests, I have asked people who I thought would tell me no who came onto my show. And surprisingly enough, they said yes. So don't be afraid of saying no. Don't be afraid of being in the room with someone who might be worth four or five. I've been in the room with multimillionaires, and it you cannot be afraid. You have to be able to go for it. Don't let fear stop you.
Don't let the fear stop you. That's a big thing, Lisa. The people who are watching this now, how they can support you? Something happened.
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't
Okay.
know. It's
So okay, that's okay. So Lisa, the people who are watching this now, how they can support you?
So you can always go to my website, which is just millennials.us. You have to add a Z in it. The S was taken. So make sure you go to millennials.us. And we have a bunch of things there. You can see all of our podcasts, and we also have a pod fest coming up. So if you're a smaller podcast and you're looking to really grow, we have a bunch of different podcasters who are really good at what they do that are coming together. And we're going to have like musical artists there as well. So it's going to be more like
Mm.
a concert than an actual conference. So you can go to millennials.us or follow us on Instagram at Maps Media on IG.
Mm.
Or
Wonderful.
me, if you want to follow me at Millennials Anonymous on IG.
Yeah, well, millennials.us. Visit the site. It's a great looking website, and Lisa has not one podcast, multiple podcasts. Okay, and I was looking at this. How the hell she is putting all this together? She cracked the code. You may want to do it. Launching a podcast is almost like launching a business. Okay, it's a real consider it as a business. If it's a hobby, it will stay as a hobby. Create it as a real business. Then you have to follow everything else, just like to promote your business yourself. No one is going to do for you. So, Lisa, we are about to wrap up. I like to ask this question to almost every guest to get your feedback, kind of testimonial for your today's guest experience. What would you say about your today's guest experience on Growth Hacking Secret Show?
I really enjoyed my time. I have been able to really share my story, and I appreciate that. Speaking with another podcaster who's going through the same thing, and I really enjoyed my time.
Lisa, you are
Uh,
broken. You came back. Can you say the same thing
yeah,
all over again, please?
Yes. So I really enjoyed my time on Hacking Secrets, being able to talk to another fellow podcaster who's going through something similar and being able to share stories and learn from one another and being able to share my story and my experiences. So I really enjoyed myself.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate the kind words. What would you say as a final word?
I will just say if you want to use your voice, do it. Just use your voice as your key to open doors and opportunities. A lot of people don't realize that the only way that you can truly be able to be successful in this world is by using your voice. So make sure you do that.
Yeah, and your voice is your key. With that, Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today on the behalf of Growth Hacking Secrets community and our entire team. We really appreciate you. This is Mohammed Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. Until the next episode, all good wishes.